At last, the rat succeeded in decoying him to the table, and had just got seriously to work with the sardine opener, when sounds were heard from the forecourt without. Sounds like the scuffling of small feet in the gravel, and a confused murmur of tiny voices, while broken sentences reached them. "Now all in a line. Hold the lantern up a bit, Tommy. Clear your throats first." "What's up?" inquired the rat, pausing in his labours. "I think it must be the field mice," replied the mole, with a touch of pride in his manner. "They go round carol singing regularly at this time of year. They're quite an institution in these parts, and they never pass me over. They come to Mole End last of all, and I used to give 'em hot drinks and supper too sometimes, when I could afford it. It'll be like old times to hear them again." "Let's have a look at them!" cried the rat, jumping up and running to the door. It was a pretty sight, and a seasonable one, that met their eyes when they flung the door open. In the forecourt, lit by the dim rays of a lantern, some 8 or 10 little field mice stood in a semicircle, red worsted comforters round their throats, forepaws thrust deep into their pockets, feet jigging for warmth. With bright, beady eyes, they glanced shyly at each other, sniggering a little, sniffing and applying coat sleeves a good deal. As the door opened, one of the elder ones was just saying, "Now then, 1, 2, 3, and forthwith their shrill little voices uprose on the air, singing one of the old-time carols that their forefathers composed in fields that were fallow and held by frost, or when snowbound in chimney corners, and handed down to be sung in the miry street to lamplit windows at Yule-time. The voices ceased. The singers, bashful but smiling, exchanged sidelong glances, and silence succeeded, but for a moment only. Then, from up above and far away, down the tunnel they had so lately travelled, was borne to their ears in a faint musical hum, the sound of distant bells ringing a joyful and clangorous peal. "Very well sung, boys!" cried the rat heartily. "And now come along in, all of you, and warm yourselves by the fire, and have something hot." "Yes, come along, field mice," cried the mole eagerly. "This is quite like old times. Shut the door after you. Pull up that settle to the fire. Now, you just wait a minute while we—" "Oh, Ratty!" he cried in despair, plumping down on a seat with tears impending. "Whatever are we doing? We've nothing to give them." "You leave all that to me," said the masterful rat. "Here, you, with the lantern. Tell me, are there any shops open at this hour of the night?" "Why, certainly, sir," replied the field mouse respectfully. "At this time of the year, our shops keep open to all sorts of hours." "Then look here," said the rat. "You go off at once, you and your lantern, and you get me—" Here much muted conversation ensued, and the mole only heard bits of it, such as "Fresh, mind! No, a pound of that will do. See you get Buggins, for I won't have any other. No, only the best. Yes, of course, homemade, no tinned stuff." Finally, there was a chink of coin passing from paw to paw. The field mouse was provided with an ample basket for his purchases, and off he hurried, he and his lantern. The rest of the field mice, perched in a row on the settle, their small legs swinging, gave themselves up to the enjoyment of the fire, while the mole made them recite the names of their numerous brothers, who were too young to go out carolling this year. The rat, meanwhile, was busy examining the label on one of the beer bottles they had found. I perceive this to be old Burton, he remarked approvingly. Sensible Mole, the very thing. Now we shall be able to mull some ale. Get the thing ready, Mole, while I draw the corks. It did not take long to prepare the brew, and soon every field mouse was sipping and coughing and choking, for a little mulled ale goes a long way, and wiping his eyes and laughing, and forgetting he had ever been cold in all his life. They act plays too, these fellows, the Mole explained to the Rat. They gave us a capital one last year about a field mouse captured at sea by a Barbary corsair. Here, you were in it, I remember. Get up and recite a bit. The field mouse addressed got up on his legs, giggled shyly, looked round the room, and remained there absolutely tongue-tied. His comrades cheered him on. Mole coaxed and encouraged him, and the Rat went so far as to take him by the shoulders and shake him, but nothing could overcome his stage fright. But then the latch clicked, the door opened, and the field mouse with the lantern reappeared, staggering under the weight of his basket. There was no more talk of play acting, once the contents of the basket had been tumbled out on the table. In a very few minutes supper was ready, and Mole, as he took the head of the table in a sort of dream, saw a lately barren board set thick with savoury comforts, saw his little friends' faces brighten and beam as they fell to without delay, and then let himself loose, for he was famished indeed, on the provender so magically provided, thinking what a happy homecoming this had turned out after all. As they ate, they talked of old times, and the field mice gave him the local gossip up to date. The Rat said little, only taking care that each guest had what he wanted, and plenty of it, and that Mole had no trouble or anxiety about anything. They clattered off at last, showering wishes of the season, jacket pockets stuffed with remembrances for the small brothers and sisters at home. Mole and Rat kicked the fire up, drew their chairs in, and brewed themselves a last night cap of mulled ale.